Welcome to Financial Issues, where we join reality with truth, helping you make the most of your money by honoring God with your investments. Now listen in as we give you the practical tools and advice you need to become a biblically responsible investor.
Good morning, folks. Welcome back to Financial Issues. Wonderful to be here with you this morning. I'm Seth Udinsky, taking you through this hour today. We are live this morning, and it's great to have each of you here with us. Make sure to say hello in any way that you're watching. Join us on our live chat, Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, anywhere else you can find us. We're live on X as well. Sam, you ready for some fun today? I'm looking forward to it. Got another one.
When am I not ready for fun?
Always.
I'm itching for it.
That's the question. And we do have a good show today, Sam, a big one. Matt Staver of Liberty Counsel is going to join me in the next segment, folks, to discuss some of the most important legal battles ongoing in our country today. You're not going to want to miss that segment. Also, AI continues to break into every sphere of life. We talked last week about how some folks have been using it for their investment strategy, including hiring practices as well. We'll take a look at a headline there. Of course, your questions and comments, get those questions in for us. We'd love to interact with you. President Donald Trump, meanwhile, is looking to clean up the nation's capital, possibly with an eye on other major cities. We'll take a look at that later on in the show. I, for one, am a fan of cleaning up the major cities in this country, as many of them do need some serious cleaning. Good to be here with all of you. Hey, just be reminded, we do have a commentary coming out probably in the next day or so, partner commentary. You're not going to want to miss that. Check that out. Later this evening, early tomorrow morning, you should see that. And we also have a live petition right now. We are trying to gain the attention of Tesla. We want to make known to them that we are displeased with the way that they have handled their investor dollars concerning their support of abortion and their support of the transgender ideology. Folks, listen, the ground is ripe for some movement here with Tesla. Their CEO, Elon Musk, of course, has aligned himself politically with conservatives. He has expressed his displeasure, at least on the surface level, with the trans stuff. And even, I think, in some ways, with the abortion stuff as well. He's very pro-reproduction and pro-family. Maybe not the traditional way to do it. We'd love for him to change that a little bit here. But nonetheless, the ground is ripe for this. So we want you to sign this petition. If you have not signed it, I want you to go right now to sign that petition on financialissues.org. We want to make our voices heard to Tesla.
It takes 10 seconds to do so. You have no excuse.
Very, very easy. Yeah,
I'm going to shame you every day.
That's right. That's what Sam's here for. Now, so sign that petition. The easiest place to do it, folks, you go to financialissues.org, you click the megaphone button. There's also a pop-up that should show up, though. If you go to the website, wait a couple seconds, there's a pop-up on the screen that kind of takes over the whole screen. Just click on that. You can sign the petition right there. Again, it's for partners and non-partners alike. We want to light a fire under these guys. And you know what, folks? Who knows? We're going to be sending this letter directly to Elon Musk, and we have no idea what the Lord will do to use this. So the more eyes that see this, the more signatures that we get on this, the better chance we have to make an impact, and the better chance that the higher ups at Tesla will see this and maybe consider changing their ways. And that's our goal with this, obviously. Ultimately, we want to be faithful to God. So whether they change or not, we're being faithful here with this, and we invite you to be faithful with us also.
Right, because there's a question, especially with the trans stuff, if Elon even knows about this. Sometimes CEOs just hire their underlings to run the business, and they go rogue and just do what they want, especially during the era of DEI. So that could be kind of a holdover from that era.
Definitely. I wouldn't be surprised too, Sam, with how big Tesla is. I mean, look, Elon's a brilliant guy. He knows how to build a good business, but
also has like 5 businesses.
He's got so many businesses.
Eyes aren't always on Tesla.
Absolutely. It's kind of like, truthfully, I liken it to a pastor of a megachurch. It's really hard to know your flock when you're the pastor of a megachurch. I'm not saying that megachurches are necessarily sinful or anything like that. It's kind of that same idea. Elon's got a lot of people underneath of him, so they might not even be aware of this. And that's our hope, truthfully, is that once he gets word of this, that he can see, okay, this is what's happening and we need to change this. So, all right, folks, let's move now to the markets here. So yesterday, they were mixed as they opened. By late afternoon, they were a little bit concerned with today's CPI data, which we'll get to in just a moment. They fell underwater for the afternoon. CNBC was having a field day preparing for financial Armageddon, as they always tend to do whenever there's the possibility of poor data coming out, particularly during the Trump administration. administration. It's almost as if CNBC is praying that it will be bad. Kind of like Trump derangement syndrome that we heard some of the guys in the Trump administration talk about.
Well, plus it's August, so there's not too much news out there. So every little thing has to be hyped up 100%. So that could be going on.
People are still talking about Sydney Sweeney's jeans after 2 weeks of that advertisement running. So yeah, you're exactly right. Monday's closing bell, the Dow Jones finished just below 0.5% in the negative. The S&P 500 was 0.25% negative. The NASDAQ was 0.3% negative. So a relatively calm negative day for the markets. The pre-markets were really muted this morning leading up to the CPI numbers. At 8:30 Eastern time this morning, we got those consumer price index numbers. It was projected to increase 0.2% in July, 2.8% for the year, and 0.3% and 3% on core, according to the Dow Jones consensus. It ended up coming in, Sam, correct me if I got these numbers right, 2.7% for the year.
Yeah, that's right.
Was it around 3.1% for core CPI? Which
so core is 3.1. Headline is 2.7.
Yep. So the headline number was actually slightly better than what was expected. The core number, not as much. The pre-markets, however, seem to be pretty pleased with this. Right now, the Dow Jones is pricing in to open at 0.5% positive. The S&P 500 pricing in to open at 1/8% positive. The NASDAQ 0.2% positive. So all in all, the markets seem pretty pleased.
And it seems like a lot of that has to do with anticipation with what the Fed's going to do with this data, that it wasn't so hot that the Fed's going to pull off from their plans to cut rates.
Exactly.
That seems to be the general feel in the market this morning.
And we did see, Sam, I think it was yesterday, tell me if I'm correct on this, but one of the Fed governors said that they're hoping for 3 rate cuts this year still, which I think would be 3 for 3 of the last 3 Fed meetings.
I think it was Bowman who said that. I could be wrong who that was, but I'm pretty sure it was Bowman saying 3 cuts this year.
For sure. So we'll have to see what happens there, folks. Fed doesn't reconvene again until September, so we'll keep an eye on that for sure there. But elsewhere in the financial news, Sam, we saw Scott Bessent is looking to see U.S. trade talks largely done by October. What can you tell us about this here?
Right. This is an interesting headline because you're thinking, wait, I thought they were all done. The tariffs are here. The regime is on. Well, you still do have those outstanding talks to deal with, especially with some pretty major trading partners like Mexico and Canada. Also, I know Switzerland, they got slammed with a pretty high tariff rate, so they're looking to sweeten the deal with Trump. So Scott Bessent is saying he thinks those outstanding deals are probably going to be done around October, sometime around that time.
Good stuff, Sam. Thanks for bringing that up. I'm confident that the Trump team will get it done for sure. His negotiation tactics in the past, how quickly these second-tier nations are coming to the table. And when I say second-tier nations, I'm not trying to dunk on any of these other nations. I just think the United States is the best, and so anyone below them is a second-tier nation. And so I think they all know that, too. They need the United States as a trading partner. They need to be in the good graces of the United States. Trump is using that to his advantage here. I think we'll see him get done, Sam. We did see interesting yesterday, Sam. I'll get your thoughts on this. Trump did extend China's tariff deadline for 3 months. What do you make of that, Sam?
Well, it could be because you still have these outstanding deals. So if you want to have the best leverage against China, you'd want to have Mexico, Switzerland, and Canada all on your side so you can kind of corner them in a little bit better.
Yep, absolutely. So that's what's going on, folks, in the markets this morning. The big news headline of yesterday, we're going to save for later on in the show. Trump is cracking down on D.C. crime safety. But again, we'll save that for later on in the show. Right now, I thought it'd be good to follow up from yesterday. We had a good conversation about wealth and Christians building wealth. Sam, why don't we read some of these comments that we got yesterday in the chat?
Yeah, so this is from Nathan. He says, I seek well to do my part at making sure my wife and I are able to care for ourselves in our older ages. We don't have anyone else to help us, and I ask God to help us build our wealth according to his will. I trust him no matter how much or how little we have.
Nathan, that's great, man. That's really excellent. I've seen too many 40, 50, 60-somethings still reliant upon their parents for wealth. I've even talked to some people who I know who don't have any retirement plan. Their retirement plan literally is, and I quote, their words are just waiting for whatever inheritance their parents are going to give them, whether it's a house or something else like that. That's not the way it's supposed to be.
Did I hear you right? You said 50s and 60s, and they're still relying on their parents?
50s and 60s. With certain people, it worked out where, parents were younger when they had them, so their parents are still around. And folks, it's not the way it's supposed to go. We need to trust in God to provide for us. We also need to trust in what God has given to us in our ability to be able to work hard for what he has given us, and not also trusting and relying on just someone else giving us something when they die. We need to be building that for our future generations there. And Nathan, I so appreciate that you and your wife are able to do that. You don't have anyone helping you, but you trust that God is going to help you build it little by little. I think it's great. What else do we have there, Sam?
We also have Nelson saying many 19th century business owners were Christians and became wealthy by creating productive businesses. Most of them turned around and gave away most of that wealth.
Nelson, they sure did. That's awesome. And, I found that to be the case often that if you're a wealthy Christian, you're probably generous. If you're either you're not wealthy or you're not a Christian, and then you're not generous. If you're a truly wealthy Christian, wealthy Christians are generous. And folks, I just want you to imagine for a second the kind of impact wealthy Christians can be for the kingdom of God. It is a risk. The risk is you have a lot of money, and the risk is you're going to fall in love with it. But if your heart belongs to God, you're protected from that risk. So, I do hope, folks, as we said yesterday, that we'll all be striving to achieve that we'll be able to build wealth for the glory of God, knowing none of it belongs to us. It's all His anyway, as we end the show with that phrase every day. Just a great force to be reckoned with for the kingdom. All right, folks, Matt Staver coming up next on the other side of this break. More financial issues right after this.
Navigating through investment options can be challenging, especially when you're determined to uphold your God-given values. Every dollar you invest is a vote for the world that you want to live in. Let your values guide your investment decisions and help to shape the culture in which we live. Become a beacon of light and pave the way with biblically responsible investing. Timothy Plan, where faith and finance collide. Before investing, carefully consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of the investment company. This and other important information can be found in the fund's prospectus. To obtain a copy, visit timothyplan.com or call 800-846-7526. Read each prospectus carefully before investing. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
The American people are taking a stand against woke policies.
People have had enough.
They are watching what's going on and saying, I don't support this.
They're making the only argument that's convincing to corporations when they start talking with their wallets.
And the corporations are starting to wake up.
Tractor Supply is back.
John Deere announced is phasing out.
Harley Davidson is making a
Lowe's
U-turn.
joins the ever-growing list of companies ditching DEI.
Money talks. So why not have it represent your values? Learn more at financialissues.org.
Hi, this is Sheena Bird, the host of Financial Issues. Financial Issues family is so blessed to have saved tens of thousands of babies, all thanks to the generous support of you, our listeners and viewers. For $140, you can sponsor 5 ultrasounds. Please go to preborn.org, that's preborn.org, or financialissues.org and click on the Preborn logo. Save a baby, save a life.
Welcome back, folks. Financial Issues. Great to be here with you this morning. Hey, I got a special guest joining me, my friend and a friend of our ministry, Matt Staver. Matt's the founder and chairman of Liberty Counsel. Liberty Counsel doing some great work, folks, in the fight to keep the freedoms that built this country intact, particularly in the legal system. Matt, we appreciate the work you guys do, brother, and welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Good to be with you, as always.
Yes, sir. Great to have you. Matt, let's begin. I'd just like for you to give a recap of some of the biggest cases that you guys at Liberty Counsel were involved in during the last Supreme Court session. So what took place in last year's session that our listeners need to be aware of? Maybe we weren't following quite as closely, obviously, as you guys are. What was happening?
Well, there's several cases at the U.S. Supreme Court that we were involved in which we filed briefs. One is Medina, and that involves the state having a right to defund Planned Parenthood or any abortion provider like Planned Parenthood from the Medicaid process. And that was upheld by the United States Supreme Court, allowing states, therefore, to defund abortion providers like Planned Parenthood. Another case is one involving LGBTQ issues in having states with the right to be able to ban puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and mutilating surgeries on minors. In other words, a state having the right to protect minors from exploitation of this LGBTQ radical mutilating agenda that will literally provide puberty blockers, opposite sex hormones and then amputate healthy body parts. That was upheld by the United States Supreme Court. And then we have another case, the Mahmoud case, and that was a situation involving a school that wanted to indoctrinate children beginning in kindergarten, first grade, with a very radicalized LGBTQ agenda and did not allow parents to opt out. They were infusing this outside of their sex education agenda or curricula because there you have an opt-out provision. So they moved it out of the sex ed and put it into literature so that there was no opt-out. You had to receive this curricula in order to continue to have school and graduate. And they were infusing it from very young age, a very radicalized agenda. Parents wanted to opt out. The school said no. This is Montgomery County, Maryland, very radical school that has been pushing this LGBTQ agenda for some years. And the good news is the United States Supreme Court sided with the parents under the First Amendment free exercise of religion, saying that they have a right to opt out. So this is a huge victory. So defunding Planned Parenthood, allowing states to protect children from this exploitation of LGBTQ agenda, and then allowing parents to opt out. Those are three among some of the major blockbusters from the U.S. Supreme Court.
And three big wins there, brother. That's excellent stuff. You know, Matt, as you were talking, it kind of got me thinking, okay, we've been in something of a reprieve, I think certainly for the people of God these last 7 months, as we got a president and an administration in that's trying to restore the values that built this country. But as we're seeing with these cases that you just mentioned, the other side is not slowing down. They're still trying. Can you speak to that for just a moment, Matt? How do you guys at Liberty Counsel kind of keep your head on a swivel as you understand, listen, these attacks on children, when we're talking about the trans ideology or abortion, how about trying to kill children before they even see the light of day? They're still coming. How do we be prepared for this?
Well, you have to multitask, number one, juggle a lot of different balls at the same time, but you never give up and you continue to press forward. And that consistency and faithfulness over time pays off. For example, Roe versus Wade, that had been in existence for 49, nearly 50 years. We litigated, others litigated, prayed. People worked in the halls of Congress. Some things we won, some things were setbacks, but overall, what happened is in 2022, Roe versus Wade, Planned Parenthood versus Casey was overturned. Same thing with the 1971 decision, Lemon versus Kurtzman. It really distorted the First Amendment, free exercise, free speech, and establishment clauses to make it very hostile toward people of faith. Since 1971, 51 years in the making, we filed briefs. We got some temporary good victories, setbacks, but continued to press forward. That was overturned by the United States Supreme Court in 2022. And so you have to just continue to press forward, never give up. You have to have strategy that is a winning strategy. And so in these particular situations, yes, you have President Donald Trump. I think one of the problems that we're seeing right now is some people think that everything is fine with President Trump in the Oval Office, and he's done amazing. I mean, just there's no comparison to any other president in history to Donald Trump in so many different ways. But the problem is that he can't solve all the problems. And so these cases, these issues still go forward. And really, the people need to get involved at the federal level with their members of Congress and at the state level, at every level, local as well. We need to get involved because we have a limited window of opportunity. What my concern is that people relax thinking that all is well with President Donald Trump in the White House and not take advantage of the opportunity that we have and that he frankly is giving to us because he is setting a very significant, aggressive agenda. If we don't capitalize on it, if things turn a different way in the next presidential election, we'll be on the brunt end of these kinds of situations where wrath will be coming against people of faith and Christians. So that's why we need to take this time, use it wisely in advance so that we can change the landscape for generations to come for good.
Matt, I appreciate your wisdom with that. One more question on this, and then we'll turn to some cases still going on with Liberty Counsel. My question for you, Matt, is how do we make sense of, and maybe just give us some insight and wisdom on this? Trump has obviously been trying to get a lot of things done. One of the roadblocks that he's come across, sadly, has been a lot of these local judges who are just blocking things that he's trying to do. How is that even allowed, and what do you make of that? Is Trump able to find ways around some of these rogue judges?
he is finding ways, and he'll have to continue to litigate this. But one of the other cases, another blockbuster case from this term, is a case involving President Donald Trump, involving nationwide injunctions. It came out of the citizenship provision in the U.S. Constitution that was challenged, and the president narrowed the focus down to nationwide injunctions. The Supreme Court sided with him and said these judges cannot issue these nationwide injunctions. And that was one of the problems that we faced. A single judge in some place of the country, selected by the radical opponents of President Donald Trump's agenda, would find these judges. These judges then would probably not even have a case that merits standing or consideration, but then they would issue these injunctions, not just to the parties, but that cover the nation. And they were dictating domestic and national policy that is the prerogative of the president. The Supreme Court said, no, we can't do that anymore. If you issue an injunction, it has to be limited to the very specific individual plaintiffs in your case. So that's a huge win. That doesn't mean, however, that the judges are just simply going to comply. What it does mean, however, is that is significant. It will curtail these out-of-control judges. But he's got a lot of other judges that will push against him. He's fighting them. I think he's going to create more good precedent at the United States Supreme Court. At the end of the day, these out-of-control judges, for the most part, are going to be cabined, controlled, and their wings are going to be clipped, if you will, by the United States Supreme Court, because we can't have the judiciary running the country.
Well said, brother. All right, Matt, let's move now to some of the cases you guys are working on right now. I saw a release on your website, I believe it was last week, about a case in the Pacific Northwest. You guys took this up concerning a violent attack on Christians at the hands of Antifa and LGBTQ rioters. Give us a sense of what happened and why are you guys getting involved in this case?
Yeah, this is the May Day situation. It grew out of Peru, where some people, Christians, got together to push back against George Soros and his agenda. And so they had a movement that essentially was hashtag don't mess with our kids. And they gathered together in Christian prayer and assembly, and that ultimately pushed back and stopped George Soros's agenda. They were standing for children, against the radicalism of the LGBTQ community and agenda, and also abortion, protecting the kids and families in their communities. So in America, there were churches that wanted to have something patterned after that, where they would gather together for prayer and assembly. It was called May Day. It was being done in May. It was at 5 cities, Miami, New York, and some other cities. The 3 original cities went with no problem. It went to Seattle, and that's where the problem occurred. The Seattle officials denied the right for this group to meet in a public park. They put them in a very predominant LGBTQ community, knowing there was going to be trouble, and there was. Antifa and the LGBTQ radicals showed up. They filled water balloons or balloons with urine and threw it on the Christians. And then the mayor said very negative things about the extremist Christians that were gathered there. Well, then Los Angeles denied that group. That was the 5th city of the 5. They denied them, saying you couldn't go on Hollywood Boulevard. Yet a few days later, they allowed a pride event on Hollywood Boulevard that just literally filled the entire street. So we have lawsuits that are being filed against both Seattle and Los Angeles on behalf of these May Day organizers, because this is unconstitutional intimidation of people because of their faith. It's intended to silence them. We're not going to allow that to occur.
Matt, I'm so glad you guys are standing in the fight there. And I'm glad you brought this up, too. I'm glad that LC.org has this, because, truth be told, I probably would not have found this on a mainstream news site had you guys not brought it up, because this story is probably being covered up by the mainstream left-leaning media. My question for you, Matt, in regards to that, with we're still seeing a 2-tier justice system. You mentioned what was happening in LA with the Christians being targeted, but then LGBTQ folks allowed to do the same exact things. How would you encourage Christians to stand firm, even in a culture that still radically stands opposed to us, despite the fact that we're now in the Trump administration? We still see this radical opposition.
Well, let me give you an example of Kim Davis. This is a case that now is pending before the United States Supreme Court that we are asking the High Court to take, to not only grant her First Amendment rights under the Free Exercise Clause, but also to overturn the 2015 Obergefell opinion. Kim was an individual who was not following the Lord. She was radically changed a few years before 2015 when the Supreme Court issued this opinion 5-4 that Chief Justice John Roberts said 5 lawyers imposed their opinion, not a legal judgment. It has nothing to do with the Constitution. And then Kim, as a result of her Christian beliefs, where she could not put her name in a marriage that does not align with God's definition of marriage of a man and a woman, she was sent to prison, lost her liberty for 6 days. And then she now faces hundreds of thousands of dollars personally in fines as a result of that decision. Notwithstanding the fact that she got a religious accommodation that she eventually requested 5 months later with a new governor. And then she got it with the legislation as well in April of 2016. So she's standing up. It's not easy sometimes, but that lady, because of her commitment to the Lord, can change the destiny of the United States of America and have a precedent that will last for generations. So never, ever, ever give up.
Matt, I love to hear that. And that was one of the cases I wanted to ask about. I'm so glad you mentioned that. Perhaps when we have you on the next time, we'll have to follow up and see how that case goes. Matt, we'll continue to pray for the work that you guys do. And thank you so much, Matt, for standing in the fight for us, for our religious freedoms in particular. Folks, lc.org is the place to go if you want to learn more about the great work that our friends at Liberty Counsel do. Again, lc.org. We got more financial issues coming right on the other side of this break. Stick with us.
Where's Mima? We found out Shepard's diagnosis when I was about 17 weeks pregnant. We learned that he was going to need a series of surgeries after he was born in order to give him what they considered a normal life. And we weren't sure how this worked.
Yeah, very emotional, very, very broken. And as my wife just said, not sure how this worked. And called Samaritan, and they said, you just go have that baby. You leave the rest to us.
And just to hear the confidence on the other end of the phone of this is not something that you need to be concerned about at all. You focus on the health of your family, the health of your baby, and we will walk with you every step of the way.
If you're like me and used to think managing your investments was overwhelming or just for the experts, think again. I used to believe I needed a financial analyst to handle everything, but financial issues showed me I could manage my own investments while staying true to my faith. It's completely transformed how I handle my finances. What felt like a foreign language is now simple. I can buy and sell stocks with confidence, knowing my investments align with my faith. And the best part, this empowering, life-changing guidance is affordable, just $132 a year. FISM gave me the tools to restructure my portfolio, diversify, and track my investments. Their video library taught me how to steward what God has entrusted to me with wisdom. If you're ready to gain financial peace and manage your investments with purpose, I can't recommend Financial Issues enough. It's something anyone can do.
To learn more, go to financialissues.org.
If you don't get life right, you're not going to get all the other issues correct, period. It is the issue that impacts every other issue. Life is the central part of what keeps this republic together. It is the contract that the founding fathers passed down through multiple generations. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You don't have life, you don't have a republic. There is a temptation out there right now, and I want to just tell you we must resist it. There's this temptation that we cast this issue aside. How does that honor God? It doesn't. And if it wasn't for preborn, I would be super just confused and depressed, because there has never been, in my opinion, a more disjointed time in the pro-life movement. We need a machine to go up against the Planned Parenthood beast. Like, we have to play offense against the pro-abortion forces in this country, okay? We have to play offense. And preborn does it in this compassionate, merciful, godly way that is just so inspiring and amazing.
Folks, I hope you enjoyed that interview with Matt Staver. Appreciate so much our friends over at Liberty Counsel. Jay in the chat giving a great comment. Jay from Texas saying, Seth, I wish Matt Staver would give us some ideas on how we as ordinary Americans can help President Trump in this great pushback against wokeism. Jay, appreciate that. I apologize I didn't have time to get to that question during my interview with Matt, but let me just encourage you right now, brother, that the way you invest is a huge way that you can fight back against wokeism. The way you invest is massive. Your money, as we've talked about these last 2 days, can be a tremendous tool for good or evil. And we want to use it for good, ultimately. I would tell you, Jay, as well, I don't know how old you are, but if I'm speaking to you as someone in my situation, I'm in my 30s and I have 3 little potential disciples of Jesus Christ. I actually believe 2 of them are already saved. They've made professions of faith, and I see the fruit of the Spirit in their young hearts. That is where I begin to push back against wokeism, is over my sphere of influence. I'm raising up 3 little children right now with my wife, and I'm doing everything I can, everything in my power, to teach them to love Christ, to teach them to hate what is evil, to love what is good. And I would tell you, Jay, start with those spheres of influence there, because you have no idea what kind of impact that could have for the people in your family. You might be older, you might have kids or grandkids, nieces, nephews. You might have the opportunity to serve in your church. I think those would be all excellent ways to start in those little spheres of influence. Remember, God promises us if you're faithful in those things, he'll give you more to be faithful with, more spheres of influence. So that's how I'd encourage you there, brother. But the next time I have Matt on, I'll be sure to, ask him that. I had a couple more questions I wanted to ask him. We didn't have time to. So appreciate that question, Jay. It's a great one. Let's go here now, folks, to a couple of headlines. Actually, no, before we get to headlines, let's take a look at the markets. They just opened up. Everything's in positive territory, feeling good. The NASDAQ is 0.75% up. The S&P 500 is 0.2%, a little less than that up. The Dow Jones, a little more than 0.5% up this morning. Oil is sitting right at $63.5 a barrel or so, and the U.S. 10-year Treasury yields are at 4.3%. That's what that's looking like this morning. All right, Sam, let's move now to this AI trend. We're seeing new jobs be developed, hiring practices. AI is going to have a lot to do when it comes to employment. What can you tell us about this, Sam?
Well, as you know, the tech sector is booming right now. All those stocks in the tech world have been booming for some time because of AI. But with that, there has been a fear, is this going to take away all the jobs? Are we all going to be working for the Terminator in the next couple of years? A Pew Research poll shows more than 60% of Americans believe that AI will result in fewer jobs over the next 20 years. But now some new research is suggesting that might not be the case. In fact, small businesses are looking to hire new people thanks to AI. That's according to a Goldman Sachs survey that shows nearly 75% of small businesses say they're using AI, and because of it, they plan to grow their businesses this year, with nearly 40% of those businesses saying it will help them create new jobs. So that's really good news. I mean, it should be clear that AI is going to replace some jobs, but many tech industry experts do think that in the end, besides some back office data entry type jobs, most jobs will not be replaced. It's just the nature of them is going to change because of this new technology, which tends to be the way that technology works.
Yeah. Sam, that's great news. So I'll be honest with you. When I saw this headline yesterday, when you had given it to me for our notes today, my first thought was, AI is replacing jobs. But then I actually read the headline. I was like, oh, wait a second. It might actually be cultivating jobs. And I can get behind that. Absolutely. I think that's fantastic. Folks, regardless of it, here's the deal. We're living on the cusp of something potentially world-altering, and you've got to reckon with that, okay? I'll pull the curtain back a little bit on you. Sometimes I feel like I'm an old man. I talk to my wife about this stuff all the time, and she's way more up with the times than I am. I feel like I'm 5 to 10 years behind every technological advance.
I mean, the fact you just said up with the times, that's kind of a giveaway right there.
That's right. I'm going to read my newspaper. No, that's honestly how I feel sometimes. But I'm realizing now, as my coworkers are figuring out ways to use AI, and I'm coming to reckon with it as well, I at least have to be able to have some kind of comfortable working relationship with AI.
That's right. The way you guarantee you are going to be replaced by AI is by not using it. You want to learn how to work work with it because that's going to be the future.
Exactly.
It's like imagine someone right now trying to get a job and they don't know how to use an email or type in a www on Google or something like that.
And you know what, Sam? It wasn't that long ago when they were facing that. 25 years ago, people were in that situation, 30 years ago. So it shows you how fast technology moves, folks, for sure. But AI is going to impact everything. It just will. Job market, investing, as we discussed last week, we have to be ready for it. And like we said, Sam, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. My hope is that mankind can benefit from the strides made in AI. And when we look back in the history books, we see this not as something that stole from humanity, stealing jobs, stealing things, but actually something that helped it, creating jobs. That's what it seems like this article's saying here, Sam, and I'm hoping that it's true. I think that could be a really good thing.
I mean, if history shows us anything, I think what's going to happen is you are going to have some growing pains where you do lose some initial jobs. I mean, that happens at the turn of the 20th century when you had all these technological advances, the Industrial Revolution. You had people losing their jobs, but then with the factories and all these other things coming about, people just changed the work that they were doing. So yeah, it got rid of some jobs for some time, but it also created an explosion of new industry.
Absolutely. So I think, as with all things, AI, you have to use it well, folks. It's a neutral phenomenon that can do great harm if misused. I think that's really the important thing, is it can be very harmful if it's misused. It can also do great things if it's used well. But you know what, folks? The same thing with this little thing that I have in my hand right now. For our radio audience, I'm holding up my cell phone. It's the same exact thing. It's the same thing with a car as well. These are things that are neutral things. It's the same thing with money, by the way. It's how we use them, and we need to use them well, steward them well for the glory of God. And if so, we can make some really good things happen with them. It's good stuff. All right, well, Sam, I mentioned earlier that we talked about how the news cycle's kind of slow, and as a result, everybody is still talking about the Sydney Sweeny ad. Apparently, most Americans don't believe that American Eagle supports Nazism and white supremacy. What can you tell us about this?
But it has the eagle on it. It's like the Nazis. It talks about jeans, blonde hair, blue eyes, all the bugaboos. Yeah, Americans are just not buying it. 12% of all voters, just 12% that is, think the ad is actually Nazi propaganda or white supremacy oriented. By the way, only 2 measured demographics actually think that it might be. And guess what they are, Seth? They're government employees and those like us who talk about politics every day. Wow. So it makes me think that a lot of these people who even say that it's Nazi propaganda don't really believe it. They just have to have something to talk about on the radio.
They have to be able to, exactly right. And government employees, too. Can't escape those ones for sure. Not exactly a surprise. We're seeing common sense winning the day, hopefully, again, Sam. So that's good stuff there. Hey, some quick hitters here for you, folks. The U.S. budget deficit has widened by $109 billion from a year ago, despite the influx in tariff revenue. Meanwhile, Ford announced, I believe yesterday, a $2 billion investment in Louisville, an assembly plant aimed at cheap EVs. We mentioned earlier, Fed Governor, we believe it's Bowman, maintains an outlook for 3 interest rate cuts in 2025. It'll be very interesting to see if that actually happens there, Sam. We'll have to see that for sure. Also, soybeans jump as Trump is urging China to quadruple U.S. buying. Folks, we're going to have the ag report in just a moment here. I am going to have Craig Haugaard on the program with me, God willing, tomorrow. So if we can get Craig on tomorrow, perhaps I'll ask him about that. So that's what we're looking like there. All right, let's do this. Let's do a little chat rundown here.
Well, I wanted to say something about that, Seth, because that budget deficit thing, it widens by $109 billion despite the influx of tariff revenue. I mean, that just goes to show it doesn't exactly matter how much money you're bringing in if your spending habits don't change. I know that that's not necessarily the cause of all of that right there, but it does show even if you rake in all this money and then you still spend more, it's not going to matter a lick. We have a spending problem in this country, and it's not going to be fixed just by making more.
So well said, Sam. Let me piggyback off of what Sam said there for just a moment and tell you one of the core values that Dan Celia, the founder of this ministry, who went home to be with the Lord about 3.5 years ago, what he taught all of us here at the ministry and what he taught to all of you for 25 years on the radio is if you're going to be successful with your money, there's one key aspect that if you don't get it right, you will not be successful, and that is to live within your means. to live within your means, to live off of less than you make, to be able to, when you see money come in, to have that money have a purpose. Living within your means is so, so very important. And I really do think, Sam, that's what separates people who succeed with money and people from people who fail with it. You hear stories all the time about people who, they enter these high-paying jobs, making $100,000, $150,000, $200,000 a year, yet they're in massive debt. Their lifestyle creep has crept up with them, and so they're living like they're a multimillionaire, when in reality their net worth is actually less than zero, even though they're raking in a whole lot of money. Sam, the point you just brought in, it does not matter ultimately how much money you bring in if you're not living on less of it than you bring in. You got to learn to live within your means, folks, and that's a biblical principle there.
The sad thing is, with you and I, with the average Joe, reality can set in. If you don't live within your means, some bad consequences are going to happen. You go bankrupt, you could be homeless, all types of terrible things could happen. The government is insulated from those realities because they can just keep raising taxes and kick the consequences down the road. They think, it's going to be my grandkids that have to deal with this problem. I'm going to be dead and gone, so what does it matter to me? And that's just a really bad mindset. And it's unfortunate that the government just doesn't have to face those realities.
Yeah, absolutely. So a good lesson once again, Sam. I think we talk all the time about how you look at the government as the example of what not to do. And this would be one of those instances there for sure. I hope that each and every one of you, and I'm so grateful because so many of you in our audience have shared testimonies how you learned to live within your means, and that's how you grew your wealth. And that's what we're trying to do here as young guys. And I'm grateful to be surrounded by people who are doing that well. You all are doing a great job with that. We'll talk more about this on the other side of the break. More financial issues right after this.
It's up to us to stand up and say, enough is enough. All of this unbiblical stuff that's going on, whether it's abortion or transsexual or LGBTQ, widespread pornography, human trafficking. Bottom line, it's still up to us. If we stop investing in these corporations that are trying to destroy us, sooner or later they're going to wake up.
To learn more about biblically responsible mutual funds and ETFs, go to timothyplan.com.
In the last 10 to 15 years being in ministry, being married, something that has been constant in our lives is Samaritan Ministries. As we've moved, we've had babies, we've had different things come up, we have just been able to rely on Samaritan in ways that we never really even thought about before becoming members.
Our heart's desire is to plant roots and be in a place for a really long time. It's how we were raised. We see the benefits of that. But we also see the open-handedness of being used by the Lord wherever He calls, because we just assumed when we started pursuing church planting, the quickest way to get from point A to point B is a straight line. And with the Lord, sometimes you find out it looks a lot more like this. And yet, Samaritan was with us through the entire thing.
We didn't have to look into, we have to change insurances now because we've moved states or whatever the case may be. And it's just been a real blessing to us in different phases of life.
I'm Kyle.
I'm Colleen.
And we're the Gen X.
And we're Samaritan members.
Through the ministry of Preborn, the Financial Issues family has saved tens of thousands of lives of babies. What an amazing job that God has done through you, the Financial Issues family. Would you join us in saving the lives of babies? What an amazing reunion we will have in glory, meeting all the people that we have saved. Please go to preborn.org, that is preborn.org, or financialissues.org, and click on the Preborn banner.
The opinions and recommendations expressed on this program do not necessarily represent the opinions of the station or any of the program sponsors. Additionally, all products or services offered by the program sponsors may not be known by the program.
Folks, one of the things that I appreciate so much about this ministry is the ability for me personally to have learned so much over the years. Sam, I don't know if you remember this. I think you were here for this, but about 4 or 5 years ago, Dan sat us all down and did the first of what was going to be kind of a series of just like financial 101 classes. It was just so cool to hear some of the things that he said. But one of the main things that he said in there was one of the core tenets of someone who has gotten control of their money and has done it well is that they learn to live within their means. And I never forgot that. And it was really cool to hear that from Dan. And so yeah, folks, just can't encourage you enough. If you learn how to do that, that's going to make so many other things fall into place. Really.
Well, and it's just basic discipline. So if you learn how to discipline your money and discipline your impulses, that's also going to apply to so many other things in your life. So it really is a wide sweeping principle there if you can get it down.
Yeah, well said, man. Let's say hello to some folks here on the chat, shall we? Sam Brian from Virginia saying hello. John in Alabama, good to see you. Dave and Darlene, good to see you guys as always this morning. We got Eddie from Tennessee. Hello, Eddie. Great to see you again, my brother. Did I say Brian and Kara? Brian and Kara, great to see you guys. Timothy from Ohio. Hello, Timothy. Nice to see you. Stephen in Oklahoma. Great to see you as well. Lisa in Texas, there you are. I think we have both Georges this morning. I see at least George from North Carolina. Little George and Big George, as they call them in the chat. Uncle John is there as well. Good to see you, Uncle John. I appreciate your comments about the stuff going on in D.C. We'll talk about that in a moment. Maritza from Oregon is here this morning. Maritza, it's early for you, but grateful to have you getting up and joining us so early on Financial Issues. Thanks for joining us today. Let's see who else we got there. Jay in Texas. Hello, Jay. We did your comment earlier. Good to see you there, brother. Let's see here. Who else? I see Mark in the chat. I see Claude is there. Claude, happy to have you as well, brother. Good to see you guys all this morning. Let's get to Sam. You know what? Let's do this first. Why don't we do the ag report? We weren't able to do it in the last segment, but we've got it here now. We'll hear from Craig Haugaard, and then we'll talk about what's going on in D.C. But first, here's Craig Haugaard with today's ag report.
This is Craig Haugaard with your Financial Issues Ag Update for August 12th. Well, today's price action in grain is going to be driven by today's USDA report. The report, which is going to be released at high noon Eastern Time, is expected to show changes in the estimated national average yield for corn and soybeans. Now, what those numbers are will determine today's price direction and the strength of that move. Yesterday, corn was pulled higher by strong soybean market, as well as better than expected weekly export inspections. As a result, we had December corn 2.25 cents higher at 407 3/4. Well, Sunday evening, President Trump posted the following. China is worried about its shortage of soybeans. Our grain farmers produce the most robust soybeans. Hope China will quickly quadruple its soybean orders. This is also a way of substantially reducing China's trade deficit. Rapid service will be provided. Thank you, President Xi. And with that tweet, we were off to the races. As a result, November beans were 23 3/4 cents higher as they closed at 10.11 1/4. Now, wheat found itself ignored with no Chinese effect helping it out. As a result, the wheat markets finished the day slightly higher in the more nearby months, while the more deferred months showed some slight losses. Minneapolis September wheat was a penny higher at 5.77 3/4. Kansas City rose by 3/4 cent to close at 5.19, and Chicago was a half cent higher at $5.15 per bushel. Cotton futures kept sliding sideways. December futures ended the day 16 points higher yesterday as they closed at 66.76. Livestock futures were all slightly higher. October live cattle were 12.5 cents better as they closed at $226.10 per hundredweight. September feeder cattle rose by 22.5 cents, closing at $340.60 per hundred. And about October lean hog futures $1.10 higher at $91.77.5 per hundredweight. Class 3 milk futures got back on a winning track. The closing bell, we had September futures 25 points higher as they closed at 18.87. Well, this has been Craig Haugaard with your Financial Issues Ag Update. We'll be right back with more financial issues after this.
There's Craig Haugaard, folks. Always great to have him here. Brian from Virginia gave a shout out as well. Any non-partners in the chat, please say hello. We'd love to hear from you as well. We appreciate you so much. Maybe you're not a partner, you're just a listener to the show. Happy to have you. Please ask your questions as well if you got them. All right, Sam, let's move to the nation's capital here. So we saw Trump cracking down on Washington, D.C., trying to clean up the city, clearing out many of the criminals, homeless, other things like that. There's a lot to talk about here. What have we got so far?
And taking some dramatic steps to do so, I might say, placing the city's police under federal control for the next 30 days and also deploying the National Guard. Here is the president making that announcement yesterday. We do have that clip.
This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back. We're taking it back. Under the authorities vested in me as the President of the United States, I'm officially invoking Section 740 of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act. You know what that is? And placing the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department under direct federal control. And you'll be meeting the people that will be directly involved with that. In addition, I'm deploying the National Guard to help reestablish law, order, and public safety in Washington, D.C., and they're going to be allowed to do their job properly.
If you've been paying attention to the news, you'll know that this announcement follows several high-profile crime stories coming out of the nation's capital, including a brutal attack on a former DOJ staffer and even the murder of a congressional intern. During that press conference, Trump had shared some stats revealing that the murder rate in D.C. is higher than the capital cities of Colombia, Mexico, as well as some Middle Eastern countries, I think Iraq as well. And you know that those are not good countries, and yet the United States has a higher murder rate in our nation's capital, which is just a disgrace. By the way, it's not just D.C. Crime has been rampant, especially since 2020, in major cities across the country, having severe impact on local businesses. New York City, for example, has lost nearly half of its drugstores in the past 10 years, thanks in large part to shoplifting. Meanwhile, Target and other big box retailers have been closing stores in high crime cities, and Rolex, Macy's, Walgreens, Whole Foods, and other stores have completely shut down locations or at least scaled them back in San Francisco, again, at least in part because of shoplifting and other crime.
Sam, thanks for bringing this up. This is unfortunate, especially considering the fact that, look, cities are in some ways the bedrock of our country. And for centuries, though, unfortunately, cities, while being so important when it comes to trade and it comes to business and other things like that, and providing, of course, housing for people, a lot of people live in cities, they've been places where godlessness tends to be more normative than in other locations. It began with Sodom and Gomorrah. One of the first major cities in world history was kind of the poster child of godlessness.
I'd argue it goes back further. It'd be Babel, right?
It'd be Babel. That's right. Babel was really the first one. Yep. If we build a tower, then it'll be right. Yeah. It's goofy. Folks, listen, I'm staunchly anti-city, but not because of cities per se. I don't want to live there. I have no desire to live in cities. But one of my favorite hobbies, I love seeing the Philadelphia skyline. I love seeing how far away from the skyline I can see the skyline. I love my hometown's major city. I want to see it recaptured for the gospel. I really do. That said, it has become something of a third world country, especially in certain neighborhoods. I don't want to live there. The reason is simple for this. If you put a large number of rebellious human beings together in one centralized location, guess what's going to happen, folks? You're going to have more crime, more drug abuse, more prostitution, more sexual sin, more homelessness, more political abuse of power, more you name it, because there are more sinners concentrated in one area.
And then if you have corrupt Soros-backed prosecutors who refuse to put these people in jail, what do you think is going to happen?
All the worse.
It's going to be the lunatics running the nut house.
And unfortunately, for the last 5 years, Sam, that is what we have seen in major cities. Like you said, Soros-backed, liberal-leaning, left-leaning prosecutors who really don't care as much about upholding law and order in the country as much as they do about keeping their jobs and keeping their voting constituency happy. I like what Trump is doing here. Some argue that this is an overreach of power. It's the old state of emergency tactic. Part of the reason why so many presidents, and I don't believe Trump is one of them, folks, but a lot of presidents, especially recently, would prefer wartime over peacetime because it gives them the opportunity to gain more power.
It goes back to Machiavelli. He wrote that. He said that if you're in a state of emergency, or even the government can create a state of emergency artificially, that gives you more power.
COVID-19 pandemic. Did we lose our YouTube audience? Perhaps we just got cut. That's okay. We're going to keep going anyway. But that's exactly right, Sam. Yeah, I don't think Trump is doing that. Here's what I think. Trump is a major city guy. Trump lived in New York for a lot of his life. He knows how good a prosperous, strongly run, law and order kept major city can be for the citizens in that city, but also for the nation as a whole. I think he genuinely is seeing a legitimate problem here that most cities have just gone down the tubes, and he's using his power as commander-in-chief, a power that he has rightfully as commander-in-chief, to address it. And he's starting with his own major city. He's trying to be a good steward of his own city. He lives in Washington, D.C. And it seems like, to me, Sam, his intent, like he said, is not to control the Capitol Police, but to free them to do their job.
Yeah, because it's the problem with those prosecutors and the local mayor that aren't being tough on crime. The police want to be. By putting them under his control, they can actually do their jobs. And by the way, he's well in his authority to do this in D.C. If he's setting his sights on other cities, that's where it becomes more questionable. I think what he wants to do is rather inspire local cities, especially in red states, to do this type of stuff.
That's the idea. And that, I think, is the hope as well. I'm sure Sam Trump's got his eye on his beloved New York, which I know he still loves, and has kind of become the poster child of this rampant godlessness in the major city. But regardless of that, folks, I do hope and pray that we see a revival in these major cities. Again, historically, cities have been places usually of godlessness, but they can also become places of great goodness and glory and God-glorifying activity if they're reformed, if they're brought back for the gospel. That's why I mentioned earlier, I hope to see Philadelphia rebought for the gospel, reconquered for the gospel. I hope you'll pray the same thing for your major cities as well. Well, time's out today, folks. It was a great show. I'm happy to be here with you. It was a joy. God willing, we'll do it again tomorrow. Make sure to keep an eye out for that commentary, and make sure to sign the Tesla petition when you have the opportunity to do so as well. Remember, it's all His. Let's be found good and faithful stewards of what God has given to us. We'll see you tomorrow.
If we ever forget that we're one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under.
Thank you for joining us. This has been an FISM production.